Hi, I'm Roy Colin, and I'm the creator of the podcast. You can find everything about me and the five podcasts on bio.link/podcaster, and you'll find it in the QR code there. I'd also like to thank my sponsors. If you or someone you know is struggling with anxiety and want to know how to be 100% anxiety free in 6 weeks without therapy or drugs, Daniel Packard Anxiety Solution Program Company offers a 6 weeks system that permanently solves anxiety at an astounding 90% success rate. People who join the program only pay at the end once they have clear, measurable results. If you're interested in learning more, go to permanentanxietysolutions.com where you can book a free consultation with Daniel. Do you have high blood pressure and want to get off the meds? Doctors are amazed at what Zona Plus can do. Get a $50 discount with my code ROY. Go to zona.com/discount/ROY and you see the QR code for all my sponsors down at the end. Quality Polish manufacturer of metal products for telecommunication and workshop equipment and other metals. If you'd like a brochure, you see it in the QR code and you just let us know if you would like a quotation shipped internationally and very competitive rates. I hope you enjoy this week's podcast.
Welcome to the Speaking Podcast. You can find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. We're also on BitChute and YouTube. You'll find the links in the podcast description. I'm also a podcasting coach. I've got 4 other podcasts, with 4 getting to the top 0.5%. You'll find everything on bio.link/podcaster. My guest today is in Canada and does a lot of things. Métis, I'm not sure am I pronouncing that right, singer, songwriter, actress, speaker, wellness trainer, founder of the Sacred Feminine Learning Lodge. Please welcome Andrea Menard.
Hello, Tanchi, Roy. Nice to meet you. And it is Métis. Thanks for
Métis.
asking.
Okay.
Yeah, Métis.
So with the 5 minutes a week you get free time, what you do in your free time?
Good question. Well, this week, gosh, what do I do in my free time? I don't know. That's a hard question. You see that I'm doing all those things. So let me just show you this week. I'm in a show that I wrote, and it's being I'm performing it in Vancouver here, and I'm doing podcasts during the day, and I'm releasing my due deck of cards. So what am I doing? When is my time off?
But you love what you do, which is kind of the main thing. So I suppose you might kind of just introduce yourself a bit further to the listeners.
Sure. And I'll introduce you in the way I was taught. Tanchikiwa nin shkotekwe. Hello, nin Andrea Menard. I am Andrea Menard. I'm a Métis woman from Treaty 1 territory in the homeland of the Métis. I'm a Métis woman, and I'm currently residing in the unceded traditional territory of the Squamish, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Musqueam people, also known as Vancouver, Canada. I am, as you said, I'm an actor and a singer and a writer and a speaker or messenger trainer. And I like to talk about myself as a medicine wheel, which is a symbol that many people relate to Indigenous ways of looking at the world. So as when you look at a medicine wheel, there's 4 equal parts. So for me, as a medicine wheel myself, I'm an actor, singer, writer, and messenger or speaker. So yeah, and this is a speaking podcast, so I guess that's the main thing we're going to talk about today, because I don't know what to pick apart to talk about. Where do you want to go?
To be honest, I'd like to delve into all of them because they're all fascinating. But I suppose let's look at your kind of speaking journey first. I know you did a TEDx as well. We didn't actually mention that, but you've done the TEDx. But let's go back a few layers and how you actually started speaking.
Okay, well, actually, that's curious because I have to mention the other parts of me in order to describe it. So I started off knowing, finally figuring out that I was a creative person. I was singing all my life and sort of doing little stories and acting, but I didn't know that that was a job that I could do. And I really, when I did, I really went into that world in theater, film, TV, music industry, CDs, so I have developed those skills in those directions for many, many years. But I started to be asked to speak at different events, and that was as a celebrity, so I didn't necessarily have a topic that I talked about except following your dreams, listening to your own creativity. And my message tended to stay within my personal circles until um something changed. I wasn't acting and singing as much. I wasn't being drawn in those directions. I was being drawn to speak. And that meant that I really knew that I needed help in learning how to be an actual professional speaker. It's a completely different story, a professional speaker or a celebrity who speaks. They're very, very different. So I went and learned from the best of the best in Canada, the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. I went to their events and I joined as a member. And I started to recognize that the message inside me was still trying to get out. I mean, I was living it, but I just didn't know how to put my finger on it. And so when it was a 3-year journey of learning what that message was, because everyone has a message in their soul. And it's like, what is it? What is that thing you want to share? And so when I finally found the center point of my wheel, it all had to do with an elders gathering that took place in 2012, and they talked about the rise of the sacred feminine, that the world is going to be seeing many, many, many changes, and it's going to come from the rise of the sacred feminine. All the changes we see are because the value of sacred feminine aspects of life, like emotional wisdom, like nurturing, like collaboration, like intuition, all of those things are going to be coming up in people's hearts and minds. And so when I found that, I realized that that was my center point. Everything else that I do has been that. I have been facilitating the rise of the sacred feminine without knowing it. And so during those times I wasn't performing very much, I really started to develop and create content and find my voice in the sacred feminine speaking world. Like for me, that was but it was from an Indigenous perspective. So it was very different from what other people were talking about. So long story short, the last 7 years have been really intense in me developing my speaking and my writing and that voice within that speaking arena.
Excellent. And you mentioned the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. You're now a membership director.
I was for many years. I was on the board as a membership chair, a membership director. Not anymore. I've got very, very busy. See, my acting and singing were slow for a while, but they started to speed it up just recently. So I'm performing all over the place on television. So I'm not as available as I was.
Okay. And just when you were part of that, for those that are kind of building their speaking career, what advantages do you get from being part of an association like that?
Oh, I can't even begin. Okay. To be part of a membership, first of all, many beginning speakers may not necessarily qualify to be a member, but however, there is much like an open door for guests to come to all events, to come to Zoom meetings, to actually purchase a huge training academy, a CAPS Academy, huge, what do you call it? A course that you can take with so much fantastic content from the best of the best in Canada. So, when you surround yourself with people who do this for a living, who have perfected certain aspects, and every speaker is different. Every speaker has different skills in different avenues, that if there's something where you're at, if you want to write a book, there's somebody who knows who can help you. If you want to create a podcast, there's somebody who can help you. If you want to create more online content, there's somebody who can help you. There's somebody who's done it before you. So when you surround yourself with someone better than you or several hundreds of people who are better than you at the moment, you are in the best position to learn. and to become better and become one of the best. And then hopefully have enough credits to be able to join as a member.
Brilliant. So I've seen.
And by the way, I
yes.
just want to say CAPS, by the way, is part of a global federation of speakers. So if you're in the States, it's the National
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 Speakers
Speakers
Association. Yeah.
there, NSA, that's it.
Yeah.
and there's some in the UK, there's like all over. So just want to say, check your particular country, they might have one.
Oh, brilliant. So I know you do keynotes, and I've seen you doing a keynote where you were singing as well. So just kind of your experience with kind of connecting with the audience and how you prepare for a keynote.
Oh my. Well, because I started in theater, I'm very easy on stage. I'm very comfortable performing. But I'm also used to tons of rehearsal time to get ready to be in front of an audience. So that was my struggle. I'm like, where's the rehearsal time? Anyone? I got to do this by myself. But I found that it's a discipline to actually write a script, to basically create what you're going to do. When I did my TEDx talk and the other TEDx talks, the people who were doing the TEDx talks, we wrote our scripts 50 plus times. One person rewrote it 250 times. So imagine that writing a script, if you want a killer keynote, you got to work it. You've got to work it. You've got to practice it. You've got to, cut the bad parts that one didn't work. Try it out on people. Rehearse it. So you know it inside and out. For me, I was never good at slides. I'd go, because I couldn't practice because I didn't have the equipment at home. So I wasn't very good at it. And I'd said, why do you have slides? You suck at them. And it's taking you away from your killer keynote. So I don't really use slides anymore unless somebody else moves them for me. So, we use the skills we have. I'm a performer. I'm good on stage. I'm a singer, and it engages people in a way that is very, very in keeping with my message. So I'm not just saying, hi, I'm a singer over here, da da da, look at me, and now I'm going to speak. That's not how I do it. I use music in my keynote because it's very much on my message. It's on message, and it's part of the sacred feminine. It's part of allowing, I talk about singing to the waters. I talk about singing, drum songs, and because I'm a Métis person, and I use my indigenous heritage very much. It's the container of my entire work. So I'm not trying to sing a song over here and go, I'm a singer, I hope you guys like me. Okay, now let's talk what we're talking about. It's all part of the message.
Oh, brilliant. And you've got 5 award-winning albums, and I started listening. You've got a beautiful voice, because to be honest, I hadn't, before we got introduced that we were going to be on the show, and I found you on Spotify, and then I saw a few videos, and it's really beautiful. You're singing.
Well, you're Irish, so I'll take that as a compliment. You grew up with beautiful music all around you. So thank you, merci. Yeah, I have 5 albums, and I tend to be someone who's maybe a little bit different than most musicians. I was in the industry forever and ever, but I'm not in the industry anymore. Tend to be more in the helping people industry, whatever that is, the wellness industry. So that includes all of the things I'm doing, but I'm also, my music always centered around a concept. And in a way, if you look at the speaker in me, the storyteller that I am, a concept is everything. The story is everything. So the songs always centered around something. So each one of my albums has a central theme, which is why I would continue forward.
Brilliant. And I was looking at some of your acting work. I mean, I say actress, and most Americans and Canadians say actor, because I don't know, we kind of so but you've been in a few different shows, all playing all different parts, and very professional as well. It's not just kind of that you're just winging it and you've landed a little like it looks like really kind of high-end
I'm
productions.
legit. Yeah.
Just like the singing, you know.
Yeah. Well, if you're in Canada, um, and if maybe in the US, I don't know how much distribution happens outside of North America, but yeah, and I actually have to say that I'm in a new series that's pretty big in Canada right now called Sullivan's Crossing on CTV, and it just got picked up. We just got news that the CW in the US will be streaming it in the fall. So yeah, it's legit, legit actor. I play an
So I'll be
indigenous
bragging
role.
in a year's time. I actually had you on my show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
So with the TEDx, because it was like 22 minutes. I know that the TED they keep the 18, but the TEDx, but I haven't seen one that kind of goes on that long. But you did 22 minutes, and it was Stanford Park or something like that, or Stanley Park. And
Yeah.
usually you don't see that much of the audience, but it looked like a fairly massive audience as well.
Yeah, it was. It was one of the bigger TEDx's that existed in the Queen Elizabeth Theater. It's a huge theater. And yeah, I have to say that my talk was actually 20 minutes, but we had a oh gosh, I didn't mean this sounds like I'm bragging. I'm really not. But there was a sitting ovation in the middle of my talk that actually went on and went on and went on. So that I'm like, guys, okay, let's cut it down. I gotta wrap this up. So it went on a little longer than we had intended, and they kept it in. So who knew?
Oh, brilliant. So I suppose one, how did you land it? Two, your preparation. I listened to it. Beautiful, beautiful message. So you might, if you want to touch on that as well, of course, I'll include it for those that they can watch it later as well, the link for it.
Yeah. So because I was in the CAPS, I was part of the CAPS community, the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. They had connections with the CAPS community, and I guess there was somebody who dropped out of the. So I went in the back door. I'm going to tell you, I don't know how people go in the front door of TEDx Talks. So I'm sorry, that's not the story you'll get here, but I'll tell you about the prep. But getting through the door was very unusual for me. Somebody had dropped out, an Indigenous person had dropped out from the lineup of speakers that were going to happen, in 6 weeks' time. And they asked if there was they called someone from CAPS to ask if there was anyone, not necessarily Indigenous, but somebody who would be a good fill-in with this type of qualities. And my friend went, Andrea Menard. and I went, TEDx, in 6 weeks, I was a mess, but I whipped something together after a few meetings, and then they gave me a coach to work with. And I tell you, people, if you're going to be doing a TEDx talk, you get a coach. There is nothing more important than having someone who has done this hundreds and hundreds of times and worked through and knows the skills of a TEDx, knows the format of a TEDx talk. And I can't say that I was that skilled. So I needed help with the writing. I didn't need help with the performing. That I got down. But the writing of it and the honing my message took rewrites. And there were two of us that were the backup speakers. And so one of us was not going to get on that year, but we both had to be prepared. So I wrote this thing with the help of my coaches in 6 weeks, whipped it together, had it ready to go, and then I didn't get on. Thank God. I was ready. But boy, the next year I had time to develop it, like the rest of the TEDx talks, or, the speakers, they all had time. So that little speech that I did got rewritten 50 more times. And it was finally like the song that I sing in the show wasn't written yet. All of that stuff came because I had time to develop it. And I had time to work it out with my coach, and he would slash things left, right, and center. And I would practice it. And then I would take it from the page, because the writer in me is one thing and it looks good on the page, but the actor, the performer in me, when I take it off the page, it's like, oh, no, that looks good on the page, but it does not sound like my voice. So I would go back and the actor, the speaker in me would change the writing and then lift it off the page. So it actually became somebody, it became a part of me. So for those people, yeah, and the talk that it's called Silent No More, using your voice to end violence against women. So you'll see that, you know, the rise of the sacred feminine is about, you know, women speaking up, men being included in this conversation. And so singing, using voice, singing is not necessarily different from who I am, right? That was part of the message, the little songbird who lost her voice, finding her voice again, right? So that's the whole message, and helping others end violence against women by using our voice to speak up for ourselves and speak up for those who don't have a voice.
Brilliant. And the fact that it didn't happen the first time, you were probably way more conscious of other TEDx's, and that you were watching it to actually, you probably became 10 times better because it was so natural. It was a fantastic speech. Because I mean, I look at a lot of them, and I think it's helped you than if you had done it at that stage.
Oh, 100%. And because I missed, you know, this particular TEDx platforms, TEDx Stanley Park was a very, very well organized and high caliber of speakers. And they went through rigorous training. Like, we had to go through different trainings together, but I missed most of the ones from the first year. So I got to join in on those training sessions for the next year. And it was really, really good because the format itself, you know, I'm an Indigenous person, and, you know, there are two parts of me that are both wise. And there's the Indigenous ways of speaking that are really connected to the grandmothers, are really connected to our history as orators and oral history. And there's the Western way of doing things that are very linear, very, you know, inside a box. And that's a very great, great little box to play in. But I don't always fit in that box. So I had some struggling to do. And my TEDx is different, as you'll notice, you know, from other people's. There's a lot of story in it. I mean, there's stories. The great TEDx's always have story in it. But this one was a little bit different. So for me, the TEDx experience was so good in discovering the good qualities of that box, of recognizing how professional speakers do it in a Western way, and then to add my Indigenous ways of knowing into both ways, you know, incorporating both parts of me into my speaking is when I shine. It's when I flourish. And that's when I really get my message across in the way that I want it to. So I guess maybe to say is that not everyone needs to fit in the box. We all have different gifts to bring to the speaking world, to our message to the world, and we'll find our best way to shine it into the world.
Lovely. And I'm curious because when you did the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, it stayed on you. And I'm just wondering, because it seemed to me that you'd like the audience to kind of say the second part. Did they just kind of look at you, or did they do it because it was hard to tell from the thing?
Oh, well, I was the opening speaker, and people were still sitting down, you know, because they were so many people still outside trying to get in. So it was a little unnerving that way. But so some of the camera work hadn't had the experience, you know, until, you know, later in the day. I'm like, oh, sure, I was your opening number, but you weren't ready for me. No, so some of the audience reactions weren't as on the ball as they could have been, but they were there. Like, you can hear them, you can, you know, and they were with me. I had them.
I mean, I saw you got a standing, and not like there's a lot that I see. There's not all of them. It's not a case that everybody gives a standing ovation. That's rare. And, you know, you could see that, yeah, that was beautiful to see.
Thank you, Marcy.
So with the human rights, and I don't want to do it justice to the name. Métis, is it Métis? Métis, advisory council member. So that's kind of for the human rights. So you might just kind of touch on that, because I think that's important as well.
Well, you may not know where you are, but in Canada, there has been a huge conversations about truth and reconciliation with Indigenous people, and that is helping the history of the treatment of Indigenous peoples in Canada be known, because it's been in secret, this horrific history of residential schools, of treatment of women, missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, um, 60s scooping of children, abuse, war, you name it, racism. There has been an enormous injustice happening to the people, the Indigenous people of Canada, that has gone underground, and people have not talked about it in the media, have not, and we've been on the outskirts of and trying to scream our way into the mainstream consciousness. And recently, there has been a growth. There has been an expansion in people learning the history, and that is because of the finding of the 215 children that happened at Kamloops, of children buried on the grounds of the residential schools. So all of the truth and
Were they Catholic schools? Were they?
yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
because
and
that was happening in Ireland as well.
I
I don't
know,
what's going on around the world with that, but yeah, it's
yeah.
terrible.
Well, some of those folks colonized Canada, right? And the Indigenous peoples of this land, just like the Indigenous people of your land. You guys were the Indigenous people of your land, and
Yeah.
were colonized just as harshly, So there's been more than 215. That was the first one. There's more. There's like 4,350 now that have been found, and it keeps growing and growing, because there's probably going to be around 10,000 children found when it all comes down to it. But Métis people, Métis people we have three different Indigenous populations in Canada. In the States, it's just under one blanket called Native American, but in Canada, we are the Indigenous people. We have First Nations, which are the people who were the nations that were here first. We have Inuit, which are the people of the North, and the Métis, who are a mixed people. So we are First Nations and European. And we were the first children born of both nations that created our own cultural identity, our own language, and our own ways of governance. So we were the last war that took place in Canada was against the Métis people on the plains of Canada and in the Métis homeland. And yeah, I am a voice for the Métis people. This deck of cards that we were talking about earlier is the first Métis deck. It's a deck of oracle cards that come from a ways of knowing to help people understand who we are. I am a ambassador for the Métis people. I am this show that I have on stage right now that's touring Canada is basically a love song to the Métis people. It's my story and my songs, and it's a story of reconciliation to help people learn more about reconciliation, about learning the history, learning stories from an Indigenous person, songs that can wake you up and tear your heart out, that can bring people together. It's a song, stories of my Métis heritage and my heart. And so is this deck of cards. This deck of cards is about helping people learn how to walk gently with themselves so that they can walk gently on the planet. Indigenous wisdom is needed on the planet. And so any time that somebody opens the door to ask questions like you are right now, asking questions about what's this Métis Advisory Council? What is this? What is that? It's an opportunity to help people decolonize decolonize their minds about how they look at Indigenous people. They have been trained a certain way to look at Indigenous people, and it is literally incorrect. It is missing half of the wisdom, the land-based wisdom and healthy ways that we integrate life, that we interact with the earth. There is so much missing from the narrative that people need to learn about. So I really appreciate you asking. And this deck of cards and this theater show and my talks and my keynote are all helping open up the door to people learning about Métis people and the Indigenous people of Canada.
And even if you kind of look back on like the old kind of cowboy and Indian films, it was always making them out to be the bad people, which in turn was brainwashing people to have hatred, you know. And it's like, I think it's even the younger generation now as well, like they're kind of, you know, some people think, you know, they're glued to their phones and everything, but I see they're more heart-centered, you know, that they're actually caring about people. It's not about loyal to the dollar, which unfortunately has been a big problem in society.
Absolutely. I would say that there is a growth. I mean, as according to my elders say, the rise of the sacred feminine. I'll explain that a little bit better so you know. So to me, what I see in these heart-centered young people is that's the rise of the sacred feminine. The rise of the sacred feminine means it's a rise in the voices that have been left out. That's why you'll see the voice of women, the voice of Indigenous people, the voice of the Black people of color communities, people with disabilities or extra abilities, the voice of nurturing men have been left out of the circle, the voice of Mother Earth, the voice of the animals, the voice of two-spirited trans and non-binary people, the voice of emotional expression, healthy emotional expression. All those things have been considered weak or less than, and they have been left out of the systems at large. And those systems are not working for everyone, so they need to be unraveled. And so whether people like it or not, the voices are rising, and they might be a little angry. People are like, whoa, but you know, when the voices have never been heard, they're going to come out in a blast. I have a space to speak. You know, they're going to come out in a blast just to be heard, and it's going to level out. So this is the beginning of the rise of the sacred feminine, where we're going to remember that we are part of a circle. We're part of a medicine wheel, and every single voice on that medicine wheel has value. But it takes a while for people to recognize, you know, the ones in the circle who've had the voice don't want to hear other people's yet, you know, so that's going to have to shift. The people who've never had a voice may not be as experienced in expressing it. So all of that is shifting so that we can create a more balanced world, that we can, a more just world. And I think the young people, they're way ahead of it. So they get this message. They're like, oh yeah. They care deeply about people and about injustice. And I think they're gonna help us find a way. As long as we lead, you know, we're the adults, you know, we still gotta lead in a way that shows them that it can be done.
What I love is, you know, when you've got a skill set as a professional speaker, especially of your caliber, you know, when you get behind something, because not everybody, you know, there's a lot of very talented speakers, but they don't use their voice for their, you know, you're basically putting a percentage of your time towards this, and it's needed. But you can also train other people, or they'll connect with you and they'll be inspired by you. And that's kind of the ripple effect.
Yeah. I would have to say that love is definitely my modus operandi. It's my motivation. You know, love is what I want to spread. And I use all the different gifts that I've been given in order to share it. You know, that will be the one thing that I will always choose first. And you're right, many speakers, that's not why they speak. That's not why. Some want to make more money, and that's fair. But if you're here to change the world, then yeah, to me, love is it has to be the baseline of everything you do.
I see it as if there's something in the world that you don't like, don't expect somebody else to do it. You know, you can be the person that starts, and then just others then will kind of be excited and get on board, and that's how you get a bit of momentum.
Yes, hey, absolutely.
So just finally, because I know you've performed for royalty and prime ministers and everything, but I saw that you sang peace to the world NATO generals. You might tell me a bit about that.
Well, the big gathering of NATO generals, all the warlords of the continent, of the world, gather together. They get together in different countries that travel, and they happen to come to Canada in, I don't remember what year, maybe 2005 or 4 or 6 or something. And I was asked to sing. And I knew that I didn't want to sing for them unless I was reminding them what they are on the planet for. They're not here to kill each other. They're here to bring peace to the planet for the well-being of all. They're here to bring, to remember that they are the caretakers of wellness. And of course, that's not what we see. That's not what we see. But we need to remember that NATO generals, they have originally come together to stop warlords, right? But still, war is still a viable option to many, many, many different countries. And I'm hoping, I'm building a world. I'm hoping to build a world. I used to be in the military. So this is not something coming from somebody who is just a pacifist, with no experience. I used to be in the military, spent 4 years in the Canadian Armed Forces. And to me, the military is an outdated system. It is one that needs to eventually be unraveled because humanity has risen in consciousness. We're not there yet. We are not there yet. But in my way, as a singer and somebody who has this message, I wanted to remind them of why they are put in positions of caretaking for their countries, is to remember that peace is the option we're all looking for, is the one that mothers are hoping for their sons, that children are wanting to be safe. And there's war happening on the planet right now. And this was before, well, no, there's always war on the planet. And I was singing to them to remind them. The song goes, "There will be peace in the valley. There will be peace in the valley. There will be peace in the valley for me." And it goes on, but the whole message is, but if I want peace in the valley, if I want peace in the valley, if I want peace in the valley, it's up to me. Because I am the peace. Yeah, I am the peace.
I'm delighted you did that. Now people know what a beautiful voice that you've got.
That's my morning sleepy voice. Thanks.
I was waiting for the dogs to join in,
Oh yeah, whew, they're deaf. Got my old dogs are deaf.
Well, listen, I totally enjoyed the conversation with the cards. You might when they're actually going to be released and how people can get them, and also your social media where people can find you.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the cards. They are called the Seeds from the Sacred Feminine, which of course we were talking about the rise of the sacred feminine. So that's what the message I want to get out there. I want people to recognize that they can do little things, that it's not so outside their realm, that we can change the world one little step at a time, and connecting to Mother Earth, creating a relationship with Mother Earth, creating a relationship with the softer parts of ourselves, the emotional side of us, the gentle part of us, the one that cares for others, the nurturer, the one that listens to spiritual guidance, the one that listens to their own intuition. That changes the world. That changes. We can't be controlled when we start to listen to the wisdom of our own spirit. And that means when more people are empowered with the wisdom of old, with indigenous wisdom, you can call it, with sacred feminine wisdom, you can call it, with the wisdom of the land, with intuitive wisdom, when more and more and more people are empowered by their own wisdom, we can't be lied to anymore. We can't be controlled, and we find lies and war and injustice intolerable. So if we develop those parts of ourselves, then we will be changing the world. And I know you're here to change the world. I'm here to change the world, Roy. And the Seeds from the Sacred Feminine are not quite out yet. They're brand new. This is my only copy. So if people, I know this is a podcast, but if you see the video, I'm holding them up. This is the only advanced copy that you can get, and they're absolutely beautiful, with my friend's work, Leah Dorian. I'm holding them up, and I'm sorry for people who can't see, but just her work.
Oh yeah, they're beautiful.
Works with the grandmothers.
And just for
as
those that are listening, if you're on Spotify, the video is on Spotify as well. It's also BitChute and YouTube, so you'll be able to look at. Very nice.
Yeah. So the artwork, she's a Métis artist. I'm a Métis writer. So we work together, and they are available on my website for now. All the links that you can get them, hopefully in on all the countries of the world. Hopefully they can find them as well. And they will be released. I think the publication date had to be moved because they're still on a boat. But I think in June, I'm going to say June 20th or something like that. But they can be ordered now. They can be pre-ordered now. Seeds from the Sacred Feminine at AndreaMenard.com, which you can find all my music and all my speeches and everything all in one place. AndreaMenard.com/cards is where you can get all the links to the Seeds from the Sacred Feminine wisdom cards.
Yeah, perfect. And I mean, your website has all the other stuff anyway, so they'll be able to find the speaking and the albums and the whole lot. So I'll make sure that I put the link, both that and the cards, on the audio and the video. Thank you very much for a beautiful conversation. And I'm delighted you sang for the listeners as well.
I'm so delighted we had this talk today, Roy. Beautiful, beautiful conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all for the Speaking Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com, as mentioned, for on BitChute and YouTube. And you'll find my 4 other podcasts along with the coaching via that link /podcaster. Sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends. And when you get the cards, make sure, if you can, give a 5-star rating as well. And listen to the music. You'll find it on Spotify and all other places. Until next week, take care.
So I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. You'll find everything about me on bio.link /podcaster with all my podcasts, and you'll find it, you see in the QR code in the graphic that's shown. I'd like again to thank my sponsors. So if you or someone you know struggling with anxiety and want to know how to be 100% anxiety free in 6 weeks without therapy or drugs, Daniel Packard's Anxiety Solution Program company offers a 6-week system that permanently solves anxiety at an astounding 90% success rate. People who join the program only pay at the end once they have clear, measurable results. If you're interested in learning more, go to permanentanxietysolutions.com, where you can book a free consultation with Daniel. Do you fight blood pressure and or want to get off the meds? Doctors are amazed at what Zona Plus can do. You can get a $50 discount with my code ROY, zona.com/discount/ROY. And you'll see it in the QR code as well as Daniel's QR code. Quality manufacturer of metal products for telecommunication and workshop equipment and other metal materials. You see the brochure there in the QR code, and let me know if you would like a quotation, shipped internationally at very competitive price. I'd like to thank all my sponsors and also all my listeners. Be sure to give me a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends, really helps. And I also have a video on how to give a 5-star rating, because a lot of people have wrote to me asking me that they don't know how to do that. Until next week, take care.